Okay, welcome back to another video, guys. So in this one, someone suggested that I do a video explaining the differences between the male and female side profile, and generally just discussing the importance of the side profile. So I'm going to do that in this video. And I'm using two examples, which is Henry Cavill as the demonstration of the male side profile, and Dutson Krios for the side female demonstration. But neither Henry or Dutson have an exclusively male or female side profile, like respectively. They have a mixture of feminine and masculine features, but I'm just going to use their faces for practical purposes to show the differences in measurements. So the very first angle is called the gonale angle, and this just determines how square or rounded your jaw profile is in the front. It doesn't always translate to that, but it is nevertheless an important value, and the male ideal range, is lower by about 2 degrees than the female range. So women typically have slightly rounder jaws, and you'll observe that in most female faces. That's the trend. So that's number one. The next one is the nasofrontal angle, which is the angle formed between the glabella here and your nasal contour and the nasion here. And men typically have much lower angles than women, by about 15 or so degrees. You can see the ideal range is 106 to 129 in Caucasian males. That is, the same concept applies to every ethnicity, but the specific range itself may change because the angle does change based on ethnicity. But irrespective, males do have lower angles than women. And I'm sorry, I've probably mentioned this in the past two recordings because I've recorded 3 videos in a row, but I am sick, so I know it's annoying hearing me sniffle, but nothing I can do about it. Okay, so those are the two primary differences in dimorphism, and these are actually very significant. So those carry the most significance in terms of facial dimorphism. The mandibular plane angle is slightly different among females, and some literature has shown that males have a flatter mandible, like their mandible contour is flatter. So, but it's not that much of a difference. So that's one minor difference. I wouldn't really hold too much weight on that. Another difference is the ramus to mandible ratio. Women have lower ratios than males on average, meaning that their ramus, or this dashed portion here, is slightly shorter but relative to their mandible. And there's actually some research showing that you can identify skulls based exclusively on the ramus length. So it is a highly masculine feature. I would say this is another very important difference. You can make a jaw more masculine just by increasing the ramus length. These measurements, the facial convexity, they do have subtle differences between male and female, but the primary goal of these assessments is to determine the harmony between one's glabella, so this forehead region, near the brow. The image is showing wrong here, I'll just show you here. The glabella here, the subnasal, and the chin. So generally the harmony between all of those should be pleasant, and there isn't too much of a difference between males and females. Males do have slightly higher angles just by virtue of more protrusive brow bones and chins, but it's not much of a difference because either way the measurement is constrained by like the actual value itself. So 180 degrees is a completely flat profile, and that's never pleasant in any face. So there is a constraint there, but within those bounds males do have slightly higher. So that should cover 3 facial assessments. They're all variations of one another. This measurement does not have sexually dimorphic differences. So in both males and females, the angle under your chin and form between your neck should be pretty acute, meaning that you don't have a lot of roundness under your jaw. Same for this. This doesn't have much sexual dimorphic differences, if at all. It's just meant to indicate the harmony between your chin and nose. So if a woman's face has a less protrusive nose, typically the chin position is also compensated. So usually this angle is exactly the same in my observation. There's no difference. So that's not really a dimorphic difference. So I'm going to go through every measurement, and if there's something not included in the measurements in the side profile, I'll mention that as well. This also is not sexually dimorphic. Every face, male or female, should have some protrusion, ideally under the eyes, because it's a youthful and attractive feature. It's like a universally attractive feature. It's not tied to sex or anything like that. This angle is slightly lower in females, even though males do have slightly more protrusive chins. The lower lip protrusion does affect this assessment. This is not a big deal though, so I would not, again, hold too much weight on this one. So let's move on. The nasal projection, this is showing completely wrong, this image. It's so frustrating, man. But even here it's showing slightly wrong, but it's at least better here. So this displays the projection of one's nose relative to it's just this projection. This one is relative to its height. But males have more projected noses, so basically, in short, it just means their nose is more prominent, while females have less prominent noses. Like Henry does have a prominent nose, but it's not excessively prominent, so he doesn't have the most masculinized nose, although it is masculine overall, especially in the front profile. But that's one trend. That's a major difference to note, is the nose protrusion. So if you want a more feminized face as a male, to balance some of your features or give like a more pretty look, then your nose would want to be less protrusive. But this assessment also is slightly different, but the concept is the same. It's different because the nose is less protrusive. And also men do have longer mid-faces, so longer noses, so that also does affect the assessment, but it kind of counterbalances, because if your nose is more protrusive, but it's also longer, then this measurement balances. So there's not much of a difference in the male and female range here, but there is a subtle difference. There's no difference in lip assessments between males and females because the assessment counteracts, or it balances. So even though males have more prominent chins and noses, it creates a balancing effect with the woman's profile. So again, there's not much of a difference there. The lips assessments should be the same for both. This also does not have dimorphic differences. This point here should lie below the mouth line, and this as well, like you generally do not want this point here, the green line, to be behind this reference line. So your chin should project past your nasion. This has major dimorphic differences, the brow ridge inclination, and this is because men have something called brow bossing. It's like this protrusion here of the brow ridge, which obviously creates a more slanted appearance of the brow, or the frontal bone, the forehead in general. So that is a major difference. If you give a woman this particular feature, it can drastically alter her appearance and her attractiveness. It can make her forehead appear very masculinized. And also the brow ridge protrusion itself, so like the protrusion of the brow ridge itself is a lot more prominent in a male face. It's not nearly as prominent in a female face. And that contributes to attractiveness. So if I have to sum up, I think did I mention the nasolabial angle? So this also is one other dimorphic difference. Women have higher angles by a decent margin because their noses are more upturned. Men have less obtuse angles, so their angles are more acute because their nose is less upturned. So that contributes to masculinity. And the general idea is that if you're a female, you should strive for more feminine features because that'll improve your facial attractiveness. And if you're a male, the opposite. And that's how it works. So if I had to sum up the 5 most important differences, number 1 is the gonale angle, so the shape of your jaw. Number 2 is the brow shape, the nasofrontal angle, so that contributes also to this forehead inclination. So when I say the differences in the side profile, I'm not talking exclusively about one measurement, but these differences manifest in various measurements. So I'll just tell you the basic differences. Number 1 is the jaw shape. Males have flatter, more square jaws. Number 2 is the brow ridge. Males have more prominent brow ridges. Number 3 is the ramus. Men have longer ramuses, bigger jaws. Number 4 is the nose. Men have more prominent noses, more projected noses, and they also have less upturned noses. So those are the main 4 differences, if I counted correctly. Now let me see if there are any other like miscellaneous differences that I should mention, but I think that should cover everything. So those are the main distinctions. If you're a male, you do want more of those masculine features in general. If there's a feature of less importance, like say the nose protrusion, maybe you can have a more feminized nose protrusion if it's within reason, because that can change your look, but it won't necessarily change your attractiveness. It'll just make you look slightly more like pretty instead of masculinized. So I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Also, along with the forehead, along with the brow ridge inclination, is the fact that men have straighter forehead profiles, while women have more rounded profiles. So this face doesn't have the most rounded forehead, but there are more notable cases. But that's another trend, is the forehead shape, and it is quite a difference as well. So I think that should cover mostly everything, or the most important takeaways. A few announcements to make again. You can take a survey on 120 or so faces, male and female. I'll leave a link to that in the description, or it'll also be in the Discord, and I'll leave a link to my Discord community as well. We have about like 120 or so members, so we can increase that if you guys would like to join. You can still order an analysis from me through email. Just contact me personally while my site is under construction. So right now you won't be able to order through my website, but you can still contact me personally. And when my software releases, you'll be able to get all these measurements for much cheaper, and you can still order a personalized consultation or rating if you want that. So yeah, keep suggesting these videos, because it does get kind of stale analyzing celebrities, but if there are any other interesting topics like this where we analyze the distinctions between the male and female side profile, that is good. And a final note on the side profile importance is it is very important. So people usually say that the front profile is more important, which it is in relative terms, but the two are not separable. Like you can't think of the side profile as separate from the front, because some of the assessments in the front, for example, the facial thirds, for example, this is a good example. So facial thirds are evident in the front profile, but you can also calculate them in the side. So for example, you can take it here, and it's the exact same concept, but you can take it in the side profile. So when we take a measurement in the front, we're obviously not going to take it again in the side, because that would be redundant. So the front profile assessments affect how the side looks. If she had unbalanced facial thirds, her side profile would look worse. And if she had worse assessments in terms of her facial alignment in the side, I'll give you an example here. So if she had like a worse facial convexity or something, her front profile would also look worse by extension. And it would also affect some of her assessments, like for example, her her lower third might be a different height if her jaw was set back. So all of these things, they're interlinked. Like you can't just say the side profile is less important than the front. When we talk about measurements that are exclusively visible in the side profile, like perhaps the orbital vector or something, those are less important than the ones in the front, but every single side profile assessment affects the way your front profile looks. Like your gonal angle will affect how your jaw looks in the front. Your orbital vector will affect how protruding and buggish your eyes look. And the same with your brow ridge. Your brow ridge will affect your eyebrow position and how deep set your eyes look. So all of this, it plays a part. But I agree that the front is relatively more important. There are more important assessments, but be careful not to separate the two, because they are both important. So thank you guys for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is.